Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating, how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Arkadiy Volkov. Did I get it right? Even though we practiced.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So let me tell you a little bit about Arkadiy. Before dedicating himself to psychotherapy, he worked as a lawyer. Although it was a successful and rewarding career, he felt a deep calling to support individuals and couples on a more personal and transformative level. His own experience of going through significant life changes, including immigrating to Canada, has given him a unique perspective and understanding of the challenges that arise from such transitions. First of all, Arkadiy, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm good. Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here.
No, it's my pleasure. Today's topic is a good one, the impact of social media. So first of
Oh
all,
yeah.
let's talk about you a little bit. What was your journey like to get here today? You were a lawyer and then you transformed to being a psychotherapist, if I got that right. What was that journey like?
Yeah, that's correct. I think I found pretty early on in my legal career that it was not something that I wanted to do for my whole life, and I started to looking for something that would be closer to me. And I didn't know anything about therapy or counseling at that point, but the more I learned about that, when I discovered it, the more I felt like it's exactly what I want to do. Kind of that intersection of creativity, art, science, and chance to help people on a more personal level.
Wow, that is it's such a jump from, let's say representing someone to now helping
Yeah.
someone, right? That's something of a journey. So in today's topic, we're going to talk about like the role of social media, right? In
Hmm.
dating and things like that. For me personally, Arcadia, I'm not a fan of social media. I have it because it does help bridge to me, for me personally, like if I haven't
Hmm.
seen someone in years, all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, I haven't seen this person in years. Hey, we'll connect on Facebook and things like that. But I think more and more people, or some people, are using it for dating purposes, and I don't see the connection anymore from when I was a young man to the role of the Gen Z people, of the young people, because I have friends that are in their 20s and they talk about that they're struggling in dating because,
Hmm.
and these are women that I know, that the men don't know how to approach, they don't know how to court a woman. Everything is through text now.
Yeah.
You don't get the interaction anymore. Have you been seeing that? Is that something that is on your radar? If my question made sense at
Definitely.
all.
No, definitely. Yeah. So I work both with individuals and couples, right? And I support them through their perspective on relationship challenges. And I do hear that a lot from my individual clients that the very nature of dating, of those initial stages of relationships change due to social media to a large extent. Not on social media, but technology overall, right? Even places where we find others, they just shifted to online, to those digital platforms, and to our skills, our social skills, right? Our understanding of other people that also evolved to a lot over the last decades and even last years, definitely.
Is this something that maybe some people are using social media as, I hate to say the word cop out, but of the fear of rejection, that they'll use of the apps, let's say the app social media, to not confront someone and get, let's say, turned down in public? If my question made sense, like this is an easier way
Mhm.
out. You're texting, okay, they don't like me, I could just move on. Where in person you get rejected, and now you're feeling it in your heart and your soul. Is that the case that
Yeah.
we're seeing now?
I think so, and I think it has some great impact on the way our relationships start and evolve now, because it's very completely different whether you meet someone in person and you are there right, in your body, you feel every second of what is happening, right? And they get a chance to get this glimpse of real you, and this makes this interaction authentic. This makes it real. Whether when it's online, right, we are much more kind of distance from that.
Yeah.
Right, someone could have a dozen of chats going on simultaneously, and right, not really being involved in any of them, and we're not invested. And of course, yeah, that creates also kind of safety, and this could be an important consideration, right, for someone for whom that is an important concern. But at the same time, yes, it gives us safety, but it also creates so much distance between us and the other person, and decreases that chance that we will really connect, that we will be able to actually give this a real chance rather than just see, okay, yeah, it works, not really, and move on.
Do we see, is it also that, again, going back to what I said earlier about the fear of rejection or whatever, but is it also maybe that they're not trained in social settings to be with someone or to talk to someone face to face? Because I see, again, because of people just texting, there's no interaction. Nobody wants to be on the phone anymore. Nobody wants to meet him. I should say nobody wants to meet, but it seems that's more of a cop out. I take it. Let's meet in person. Let's talk on the phone. Let's get to know each other.
Mm.
Let me hear your voice when you're happy. Let me hear your voice when you're sad. Let me hear your voice when you're mad.
Yeah.
And you being in the, I would say, medical field, are just people just not, are they not feeling comfortable just taking
Yeah.
that
So I
next
think,
step? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, sorry for cutting you off.
No, no,
I
no, you're
think you're
good.
making, yeah, this question is actually great. And I think there are so many levels on which we have changed, our society has changed, relationships has changed. And I really like the words you used, right? Let me hear your voice, let me see your face, because this is what a relationship is about, right?
Yeah.
This is just so true for our even physiology, right? For our nervous system, for our brain, the way we work, right? We need to see the other person, we need to feel the other person, to hear them, because that allows us to, right, get this valuable information that is just right, so crucial for us, that allows us to regulate ourselves, that allows us to kind of engage in that mutual regulation and exchange of so many signals. And I am a fan of technology, right? It has
Yeah.
such great value, and it simplifies so many things. It makes so many things possible. But when it starts to, right, occupy a space which should belong to some other forms of interaction, that's where I think we will face a certain risk. And going back to your question, I think it's multi-layered, right? Definitely, I think there is that issue of our social skills kind of devolving in a way, because we have fewer instances where we can practice those, right? And we have maybe less need for that from the viewpoint of someone who has been right, using technology from their first years of life. There is also, right, that's change in our emotional resilience and our connection to emotions, right? Because probably, I don't know if that is your experience, right? Something I know it is that um, we're not as right, resilient, especially younger generations, as probably those older ones. And on the one hand, it is more connected to, right, our being able to feel our feelings and to, right, be present with what we're feeling. But at the same time, it often creates too much kind of fragility and vulnerability, where I think we can be much more resilient with that. I hope that that point makes sense.
Yeah, no, no, it does. But and you hit on something where um emotions, right? And and in your practice, right? You're helping people, you're helping couples, you're helping individuals. Does it get to the point where someone, they're afraid just to be in the presence of someone? Because again, I always go back to rejection, but I also
Mm-hmm.
just that is their social, they're not a social butterfly, but they're stunted. In other words, because they're so used to using the apps, and you talk about age
Mm-hmm.
appropriate. For me, I'm an older man, so I like being out there. I like meeting people in person. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said before, I want to see their emotions and all that. The younger people, it seems like they're hide behind the technology, which I agree with you. I love technology because it makes us talk together. You're in Canada,
Right, exactly.
I'm in
Yeah.
New York City, so I love that part. Um, how how prevalent is what's the word I'm looking for? The connection or the non-connection of people. You're helping out.
Mm-hmm.
How you get how, again? Let's go back to how do we connect people without the
Yeah.
use of social media as a buffer in between? If I made sense at all.
I think so, yeah, and I love that question. And this maybe, right, I will try to approach that from an angle. Let me know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That right, of course, being there in front of another person, right? Being there with the person who is important to you, who's valuable to you, right? Of course, that's scary, right? Because that's, I think, what makes relationships so challenging, so difficult sometimes. Because the person who we love, the person who we right, are close to, they can make us the happiest person in the world, but they also can make us feel worse than anyone else, right? They can hurt
Yeah.
us more than anyone else. And of course, it's scary, right? Especially when we don't feel safe enough in that, when we don't feel that we can deal with right, hurt or being upset, or right, we can process that. Of course, we don't feel safe that, and we'll try to find ways to deal with that. And technology offers many such ways, right? So if I don't feel confident facing that kind of right risk, and now I have a way to distance myself and have some kind of a protection or a shield, I'll probably reach out for that, right? And technology that serves this function here, but it's mostly just about how safe we can feel with each other and with ourselves.
Yeah, no, I like that. How do you feel with someone in the presence? How you feel about yourself? Is it do we go back to confidence then? Of whether it's a man and a woman, do we go, or just, whether it's two people, is the confidence a factor where, you I always go back to the social media and the
Mhm.
apps, you're hiding behind it, but is confidence
Yeah,
come into play?
I think that's right. All those things, safety, confidence, right,
I like that.
connection, they're
Yes.
all parts, right, of a big whole, right? And they have the same root, I guess, right? How how we can feel about ourselves, how connected are we to ourselves? Because if I am, right, if I know what I'm feeling and I can, embrace that, if I can allow myself to feel that, and I know that even if I feel something that is not so great, right? Even if I feel scared, even if I feel sad, even if something right like, kind of triggered me, I will deal with that, right? I won't be crumpled. Then I can take risks. Then I can right take a step outside of my zone of comfort, right, of confidence, and extend that little by little just to see what happens when I go outside.
Yeah.
But when I doubt that, right, when I'm not so sure that I can take that blow, right, when I'm not so sure that it will not actually crumple me, then probably I will take more and more of those safety measures. But the more I take of those measures, the less prone I will be to take risks ever, right? And this can create
Wow.
either kind of a positive feedback loop or a negative.
Well, I like that where you said, let me take can I take a leap of faith
Mhm.
and not worry about, oh, did I lose you? You froze a little bit. Hello? There you
Yeah,
go.
there was a small glitch. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're good. So I, because I wanted to go back because it's you might be outside, you might meet people, but then if you're hiding behind social media and things like that, you get a client, and maybe part of it is the fear of just interacting with people. um do you ever get clients like that, or if you could describe more of your clients,
Yeah.
like what that entails when it comes to getting your clients?
Yeah, actually, anxiety and
Anxiety.
all that
Okay.
entails, right, is a big part of my work. And when I was just starting, right, I approached that from a more kind of practical angle, right, understanding how we think about things that scare us, right, what we can do differently. But the more I worked, the more I understood how deeply related, right, that anxious feeling is to our sense of self, of our sense of others, right, how we see ourselves, what kind of image we have, what kind of image we have of others. And so actually, right, something that probably our listeners can relate to, probably something you can relate to, is when you think of right, maybe a moment when you first said "I love you," right, to the person you cared for, or
It
you
was
were on a first
hard.
date, right? Yeah, what could be scarier than that, right? It's kind of it makes me kind of tense now thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
There is this exhilarating feeling, and it's beautiful, but it is scary, right? It can be a lot to take. And of course, when right, we approach that and something inside us says, hey, I can't really do that. Or, right, if they take that wrongly, or if they look at me and judge me, right, I don't know what I would do. we will probably try to avoid that, right? By all means, we can. But if we find ways to actually feel more comfortable with that, right? We find a ways to build that sense of self that would be stronger, that would be more resilient, that would be just safer with all parts of our experience. Then we can gradually expand to right how big of those leaps of faith we can take. Maybe it'll be just a step of faith first, but then we'll move into leaps.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that. And we're talking with Arkadiy Volkov. Today's topic is the role of social media. And for the longest time, I'm 63. So when I was in my 40s, late, I think it was a mid 40s, give or take, when I could say I love you and it meant something. Or if somebody said that to me, I just took it as words.
Hmm.
No, it just went
Okay.
one ear and out the other. So I took classes, I personal development classes and things like that. And when I started saying I love you, all of a sudden, like I had this uh
Mm.
knot in my chest and stomach. But when I said it, and then I heard it back from one of my close buddies, one of my friends for over 30 years. He goes, "Oh, I love you too, Will." I was like, "Oh, wow, I can say it, and
Wow.
it
Yeah.
actually means something." So now,
Exactly.
and the thing is, though, Arkady, I felt because I wasn't getting it back, I couldn't say those words.
Hmm.
And that stemmed from, my parents. I grew up with my grandparents, and they were very strict. They
Hmm.
weren't lovey-dovey types, but I always had that in myself. I always been affectionate and all that. But saying the words "I love you," that was
Hmm.
tough. I had to take
Okay.
classes, read, and actually, you know, get it released from my stomach and chest. And that made a
Okay.
world of a difference that I started feeling like I could just say it randomly, but it means something if I made
Hmm.
sense at all.
Right. Not just words. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Something sincere. Yeah. Yeah. That's so right. I appreciate you sharing that. Part of right of your experience, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think it can be equally hard right, for someone to reach out to others, right? Whether with words of love, right, with affection. It can
Yeah.
also be very hard to take that in, right? Sometimes we can be affectionate with others, but when we hear that from someone else, these are just words, right? We just can't allow ourselves to let us in. So yeah, what I hear in your words, right, is an example of how many things actually get in the way of that connection, just because it is right something that's is so important and also pretty scary.
Yeah, and it was for me. I'm telling you.
Hmm.
But
Oh yeah.
when I took the, it was like a
Hmm.
4 day self development
Wow.
classes, and I saw the reactions of other people saying the same thing and feeling it. I said, "Wow, you know what? I can say it does have
That's
meaning."
amazing.
and
Hmm.
and it was, and that was in my early to mid 40s, if I remember correctly. And again, now I'm not afraid to even text it, not even afraid to to say it to my close buddies, to some of my female friends, girls that I'm in love with. I like, "Hey, I love you," stuff like that. And if I don't get
Okay.
it back, then I got to think, okay, she doesn't feel the
Hmm.
same. Now how do I react to that? So first of all, okay, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. My God, I could probably talk to you for another hour. And before I let you go, talk more about your practice. Do you cover just Canada, the United States? So talk a little bit more about your practice.
Yeah, I'm authorized to practice in Canada, in Ontario, and in other provinces where regulations allow RPs or just like a therapist to practice. So,
Okay.
and I not only practice myself, I have a team, and we work with a very wide clientele. We work with individuals, with couple, with families, with kids, trying to help people to connect with their emotions, to make their relationships stronger and closer on those many levels.
No, I love it. Anything else you want to promote? I mean, Kitty, I'm looking at your website. I'm waiting for a book because you have at least one, two, three, maybe 10 books in you.
That sounds great. Yeah, I will keep those words very close to my heart, and I hope that they will grow into something. No, yeah, my practice is called Feel Your Way Therapy, and that is, I guess, the way that I approach right, our kind of way through life. That if we're able to not only know it, not only think about that, but also feel it, that's where some great things can happen.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. Well, again, Arkady, first of all, again, thank you so much for being on People
Thanks,
on
Will.
Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great conversation. I really appreciated your questions and
No, no,
that
definitely.
you shared about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
listen, like I said, I could probably talk to you for another hour. So I definitely want to have
Likewise.
you back on. So again,
Okay. I'm
thank you
looking
so
forward to
much.
that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay. Have a good night.